Hey guys, tonight we are going to travel back to the sprawling, vibrant heart of the Ottoman Empire, to the city of Constantinople in the late 1500s. Our mission is a simple one, driven by a universal need, the search for a good cup of coffee. We're heading to one of the world's very first public coffee houses, a place of stories, whispers, and warm, smoky air. Now, a gentle warning. You probably wouldn't survive this trip in reality. Not because of any great danger, but because the complete lack of public restrooms, reliable plumbing, and decent Wi-Fi would likely cause a full system shutdown within hours. Plus, the bread, while delicious, contained enough grit to sand a small piece of furniture. You're just not built for it. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. But only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. It's always appreciated. And in the comments, I'd love to know where you're listening from and what time it is there. It's always fascinating to see how far these little stories travel. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Asterisk, the first thing you notice isn't a sight, but a feeling. It's a gentle, rhythmic rocking, a consistent, lulling sway that has been your companion for the last hour. You're sitting on a simple wooden plank in a small, narrow boat, a vessel they call a kite. It feels less like a boat and more like a carved-out seed pod, impossibly delicate as it glides across the dark, glass-smooth water. The air is cool and heavy with the smell of salt and something deeper, something ancient and briny. A fine mist hangs in the pre-dawn stillness, muffling the world in a soft, gray blanket. Your only companion is the boatman, a silhouette at the stern, his face hidden in shadow. He doesn't speak. He simply works the long, slender oars with a practiced, silent efficiency that suggests he has made this journey 1,000 times before. The only sounds are the quiet dip and pull of the oars, the soft shush of water against the hull, and the distant, lonely cry of a gull. Asterisk, you pull your cloak a little tighter. The dampness is seeping into your clothes, a gentle chill that reminds you it's that magical, fleeting moment just before the world awakens. You're on the water of the Golden Horn, the legendary estuary that serves as the city's grand aquatic boulevard. And as you sit there, adrift in the gray calm, something begins to change. A pale, ethereal glow appears on the eastern horizon. A faint line of soft rose and dusty orange beneath the deep indigo of the fading night. The mist begins to thin, not burning away, but rather pulling back like a theater curtain. And then you see it. At first, it's just a jagged silhouette, a dark serrated line drawn against the slowly brightening sky. But as the light gathers strength, the silhouette resolves into a breathtaking panorama of domes, towers, and the impossibly slender, needle-like spires of minarets. It's the skyline of Constantinople, the largest city in the known world. The rising sun catches the high golden crescents atop the minarets, making them flash and glitter like stray stars that refuse to fade with the dawn. The great domes of the mosques Hagia, Sophia Suleimani, rise like the soft, sleeping shoulders of giants, their vast, curved shapes still cloaked in shadow. The city looks less like a place built by human hands, and more like a fantastic geological formation, a mountain range of faith and power. Asterisk, you try to comprehend the sheer scale of it all. How many lives are stirring behind those walls? How many dreams are being dreamt in the moments before the first call to prayer echoes from those soaring towers? This is a question historians still wonder about. There was no formal census in the way we understand it, so a precise population count for the city in this era remains a subject of lively debate. Some estimates place it around 400,000, while others argue it could have been as high as 700,000 souls, a sprawling, chaotic, magnificent mass of humanity packed onto this peninsula, between two seas. Looking at it now, as it silently materializes from the mist, you feel the higher estimates might be closer to the truth. The city seems to breathe, Asterisk your boatman, unbothered by the spectacle, gives a quiet grunt and adjusts his course, aiming for a stretch of shoreline where hundreds of other small boats are clustered like water bugs around a leaf. The sounds of the city are beginning to reach you now, carried across the water. Not individual noises, but a low collective hum. It's the sound of a metropolis stretching and yawning, the first rumblings of its immense daily industry. You can now make out the formidable sea walls that have protected this harbor for a millennium, their stone faces weathered and scarred, but still standing defiant. Seagulls, who seem to operate on a much stricter schedule than humans, are now circling in earnest, their calls becoming more demanding, as if they're a union of feathered auditors about to inspect the morning's fish catch. Asterisk, you are a stranger here, a traveler from a distant land, drawn by tales of a strange, bitter brew that sharpens the mind and fuels conversation. A drink called coffee. The very idea of a public house dedicated not to wine or ale, but to this exotic black liquid feels like a fantasy. Your boat glides past larger merchant ships anchored further out, their tall masts a forest of bare, leafless trees. You can smell new scents on the breeze now, mingling with the salt and fish, the faint aroma of wood smoke from 1,000 breakfast fires, the dusty temps of spices, cinnamon, clove, and something else you can't quite name. The unmistakable, earthy smell of livestock. The gentle chaos of the docks is just ahead. Your quiet, watery journey is about to end, and your journey on foot through the labyrinthine streets of this magnificent, bewildering city is about to begin. The boatman finally brings the oars to rest, and the kayak drifts the final few feet, nudging gently against a wooden pier with a soft, woody thump. He extends a calloused hand, not for a handshake, but for payment. You get the distinct impression he's charging you the tourist rate. Asterisk, you fumble in a small pouch for a few silver coins, the Aki, and place them into the boatman's waiting palm. His fingers close around them without a word. There's no smile, no thank you, just a slight, almost imperceptible nod that seems to say, "This is adequate. Now please, vacate my vessel." You get the sense he's already focused on his next fare, his mind a silent calculator of tides and tourists. With a slight wobble, you rise and step from the gently rocking kayak onto the solid, unmoving timber of the pier. The transition from the fluid instability of water to the firm reliability of land is surprisingly grounding. The wooden planks beneath your feet are thick and worn smooth by a million footsteps, slick in places with sea spray and something unpleasantly fishy. They groan and creak under your weight, as if complaining about being woken up so early. Asterisk the moment you are fully on the dock. The muted hum you heard from the water transforms into a full-blown surround sound experience. It's the gentle chaos of a world waking up to business. The air, which on the water was crisp and salty, is now thick and heavy, a rich stew of competing aromas. The dominant scent is undeniably fish-sharp, briny smell from overflowing baskets of silvery, wriggling creatures being haggled over with theatrical intensity. But beneath that, other notes swirl in the air. There's the warm, sweet perfume of dried figs and dates piled high on a tarp. The dusty, exotic temps of spices wafting from half-open burlap sacks, cumin, pepper, and saffron, creating a golden haze of scent. Mingled with all this is the sharp, chemical smell of tar used for caulking ships, the earthy funk of damp wool, and the pervasive background aroma of 1,000 unwashed but hard-working people. It's not unpleasant, just dense. It's the smell of commerce itself. Asterisk your eyes try to make sense of the scene. It's like the world's most disorganized and wonderfully alive outdoor market. There are no neat aisles or designated stalls. Commerce happens wherever there is an empty patch of ground. A man with a magnificent curling mustache and a turban the size of a small pumpkin is trying to sell a stack of carpets, unrolling one with a flourish to reveal a pattern of deep reds and blues. Next to him, A woman in a simple gray tunic sits serenely behind a mountain of onions, polishing one with a cloth, as if it were a precious gem. Porters, known as hamels, are a constant river of motion within the larger sea of people. These men are astonishing. You see one, his back bent almost parallel to the ground, with a huge leather harness strapped to his shoulders. On it is a load that defies physics. A tower of wooden crates, a rolled-up mattress, and what appears to be a very disgruntled goose tied on top, its head craning around with a look of pure existential bewilderment. He navigates the crowd with a low, rumbling call, a human foghorn warning everyone to get out of his way. Asterisk, this is the great, beating heart of global trade. A widely accepted fact about Constantinople is its role as the ultimate middleman. Goods from the Silk Road, spices from India, and the Moluccas furs from Russia, and textiles from Italy all found their way here. You see evidence of it everywhere. You can spot the distinctive high-collared coat of a Venetian merchant, his face a mask of shrewd appraisal as he inspects a bolt of silk. You see a group of sailors with the sun-darkened skin and features of North Africa, laughing loudly as they share a piece of flatbread. A stern-looking official with a ledger and an inkpot is arguing with the ship's captain, gesturing emphatically at a row of sealed barrels. You find what looks like a promising artery leading away from the docks, a narrow, descending alleyway wedged between two tall, imposing stone buildings. It's less of a street and more of a crack in the urban facade. As you step into it, the boisterous energy of the port recedes, replaced by a more intimate, enclosed atmosphere. The sunlight is immediately cut off, leaving you in a cool, shadowy canyon. The sounds change, too. The broad chaos of the crowd is funneled in two distinct, echoing noises: the sharp clip-clop of a lone donkey's hooves on stone, the distant clang of a blacksmith's hammer, and the high-pitched laughter of children playing some unseen game. The air here is different, cooler, and tinged with the damp, earthy smell of wet stone and moss. Asterisk, the ground beneath your feet is no longer flat planks, but a mosaic of uneven, moss-licked cobblestones. They seem designed by a committee dedicated to ankle-related mishaps, tilting and dipping in a way that demands your full attention. You walk carefully, placing your feet with the deliberate focus of someone crossing a treacherous stream. The alleyway winds and climbs, a gentle but persistent upward slope. The walls on either side are a tapestry of textures. They are mostly rough-hewn stone, patched over the centuries with brick, plaster, and random bits of marble that were probably borrowed from a crumbling ruin somewhere nearby. Wooden upper floors of the houses jut out over the alley, nearly touching in some places, creating a tunnel-like effect. These overhangs, a feature of Ottoman architecture, were a clever way to maximize living space on a small footprint. They also, you realize, make for an excellent, if slightly nerve-wracking system for people watching from above. You catch a glimpse of a face in a high window, a woman shaking out a colorful rug, showering a fine cloud of dust into the air below. You duck instinctively, though it dissipates long before it reaches you. Asterisk, your mission is to find a coffee house, but you have no map, no address, only a scent to guide you. So you walk with your nose, trying to parse the complex olfactory landscape of the city. You pass the open doorway of a bakery, and a delicious wave of warm, yeasty air washes over you. Inside, you can see a baker, his arms white with flour up to the elbows, sliding flat, round loaves of bread from the mouth of a massive brick oven. The smell is so intoxicatingly good it almost makes you forget your quest entirely. For a moment, you consider abandoning the search for coffee and just living here, in this pocket of warm, bready air. But you press on. A few steps later, the bread scent is overpowered by the sharp, metallic tang of a metalworker's shop. Then comes the sweet, slightly cloying perfume of a flower seller, her buckets filled with drooping roses and jasmine. Each doorway offers a new sensory clue, a different chapter in the city's story. Asterisk, You're beginning to feel a bit like a hound on a very confusing trail. You have a vague idea that the coffee houses are located in the commercial heart of the city, near the Grand Bazaar, but navigating this web of identical-looking alleyways is profoundly disorienting. Every turn seems to lead to another, almost identical, winding path. There are no street signs, no numbers. The city's layout is organic, grown over centuries rather than planned. A lesser-known quirk of this era is that directions were often given not by street names, but by landmarks, usually a prominent mosque, fountain chasm, or public bath hammam. Someone might tell you to turn left at the fountain of Sultan Ahmed, walk until you see the tomb of the famous poet, then ask someone near the big plane tree. It was a system that worked perfectly if you were a local, and was utterly, comically useless if you were not. Asterisk, as you navigate another tight corner, you almost collide with a man carrying a long wooden pole on his shoulder. Dangling from the pole are dozens of circular, sesame-covered bread rings. He is a walking, talking vending machine, his rhythmic cry of simitays, fresh sip, echoing off the stone walls. The smell of toasted sesame is tempting, but it's not the rich, roasted aroma you're hunting for. You murmur an apology and press onward, feeling the first twinges of frustration. Was this whole coffee thing a myth? A traveler's tall tale? The city is vast, and your chances of stumbling upon one specific establishment feel vanishingly small. Asterisk. You pause for a moment to catch your breath. You lean against a cool stone wall, watching the flow of life in the alley. A man hurries past, his fine silk robes indicating a certain status, while a woman draped in a dark farachi glides by in the opposite direction, her eyes just visible over her veil. Children chase a stray cat, their bare feet slapping against the stones. Everyone moves with a purpose you lack. Historians still wonder about the daily routines of the average citizen. How did they conceptualize their city? Did they feel lost in its immensity? Or was their world a small, familiar collection of alleys and shops, a village within the metropolis? Did they feel the same sense of anonymous bewilderment you do now? Or was this maze their comfortable, predictable home? Asterisk you. Close your eyes for a second, blocking out the visual chaos, and focus entirely on your sense of smell. You breathe in deeply, trying to filter out the bread, the flowers, the dust, the general musk of humanity. And then, faintly, you catch it. It's subtle, almost lost beneath the other scents, but it's there, a new aroma on the breeze. It's not sweet, not spicy, not floral. It's dark, earthy, and slightly smoky. It's the scent of something being roasted. It's the smell of coffee. A renewed sense of purpose floods through you. You're no longer lost. You're on the scent. You push yourself off the wall and begin to walk again, your pace quickening, your head up, following that faint, promising thread of aroma through the labyrinth. Asterisk, following the scent of roasting coffee is like a strange, invisible form of orienteering. You turn a corner, and the aroma strengthens, a rich, nutty, almost chocolatey perfume that fills your head and quickens your step. You feel a surge of triumph. You're getting closer. Then you pass a tannery, and the acrid, chemical stench of curing leather completely obliterates the delicate coffee scent, making your eyes water and your nose feel personally insulted. You hurry past, holding your breath, your moment of victory snatched away. For a few panicked moments, you think you've lost the trail completely, but you persist, walking another 50 paces, and mercifully, the air clears. The ghost of the coffee scent returns, faint but definite. It seems to be pulling you further uphill, deeper into the commercial district. Asterisk, the alleys are becoming more crowded now. You're clearly entering a busier part of the city. The shops are no longer just bakeries and blacksmiths, but purveyors of more refined goods. You pass a stall where a man is meticulously arranging brightly colored spices into perfect conical mounds: fiery red paprika, golden turmeric, and pale green cumin. The sight is so beautiful, it stops you for a second. It's like a painter's palette, but for flavor. You see a silk merchant's shop, bolts of shimmering fabric in jewel tones, emerald, sapphire, ruby stacked to the ceiling. The flow of people is thicker, a river of turbans, veils, and assorted headwear. The gentle murmur of the quieter alleys has been replaced by a constant, energetic hum of conversation and commerce. Asterisk, you continue to follow your nose, a process that now involves a lot of swerving and dodging. At one point, you are certain the scent is coming from your left, down a short, dark passageway. You follow it eagerly, only to find it's a dead end, culminating in a small, private courtyard where an old man sits on a stool, meticulously cleaning a fish. The source of the delicious roasting smell, you realize, with a sinking heart, was his neighbor's kitchen. He looks up at you with a gaze that is neither friendly nor hostile, merely questioning. You give him a weak, apologetic smile, a gesture that says, "Apologies. Just a hopelessly lost foreigner. Please ignore me," and beat a hasty retreat, your cheeks warm with embarrassment. Back in the main thoroughfare, you recalibrate, sniffing the air like a cartoon dog. The true scent seems to be further on, and stronger now. You can't be mistaken this time. Asterisk, and then you see it. Or rather, you find the source of the aroma. It's not a grand establishment with a gilded sign. It's almost disappointingly humble. Tucked away in a small, recessed alcove off the main street is a simple, unadorned wooden door. The wood is dark, almost black, and worn smooth in the middle, where countless hands have pushed it open. Above the door is a small, painted sign, so faded by sun and rain that it's barely legible. It depicts a simple, steaming cup. There are no words, no name, just this universal symbol. This was a common practice, as literacy rates were not what they are today. A pictorial sign was far more effective than a written one. The sign itself, a small but quirky historical detail, speaks to a world of visual, rather than textual, communication. Asterisk, this must be the place. The smell is thickest here, a warm, welcoming cloud of roasted coffee that seems to leak from the very pores of the wooden door. It's a profound, complex scent, bitter and earthy, like dark soil, but with sweeter notes of caramel and smoke. It smells like warmth and conversation. It smells like a place to rest. You stand before the door for a moment, a little hesitant. This is it, the destination of your long, early morning journey. Asterisk. The door swings inward with a soft groan, a sound of protest from old, tired hinges. The moment you cross the threshold, you are enveloped. It's a complete sensory transition, as abrupt as stepping from a breezy sunlit beach into a warm, calm cave. The first thing that hits you is the air. It's thick, warm, and heavy with the combined aromas of strong coffee, sweet tobacco smoke from a bubbling water pipe nargile, and the faint, musky scent of damp wool and dozens of human bodies. It's not an unpleasant atmosphere, but it's dense enough to feel like a physical presence, a warm, smoky blanket wrapping itself around you. Asterisk, your eyes, accustomed to the bright, morning sun, are momentarily useless. The interior is dim, shrouded in a perpetual twilight. The only light comes from a few small, high windows, their glass thick and uneven, which allow thin, hazy shafts of dusty sunlight to pierce the gloom. These beams of light catch the swirling motes of dust and smoke, making them dance and glitter like tiny, ethereal spirits. The primary illumination comes from several small, ornate oil lamps, their brass surfaces catching the flickering flames within, casting a soft, golden, and distinctly moody glow across the room. The low ceiling, darkened by years of accumulated soot, seems to press down, enhancing the feeling of intimacy and enclosure. Asterisk, the second thing you notice is the sound. The roar of the street is gone, replaced by a low, continuous, and surprisingly soothing cacophony. It's a rich tapestry of human noise. The dominant sound is a constant, low-level murmur of conversation. Dozens of quiet discussions, overlapping to create a single, rumbling drone. It's the sound of a hive, busy but not frantic. Puncturing this hum are other, sharper noises. The sharp clack of backgammon pieces hitting a wooden board. The soft, rhythmic bubbling of a nargile. The clinking of small ceramic cups being placed on wooden tables. And the occasional burst of hearty laughter that erupts from one corner and then quickly subsides back into the general murmur. There is no music, no shouting, just the comforting, organic sounds of men at ease. Asterisk, you pause just inside the doorway, allowing your senses to adjust, feeling slightly awkward and conspicuous, like a new student on the first day of school. The layout of the room begins to resolve out of the dimness. It's a long, rectangular space, not particularly large. The floor is covered with well-worn faded kilim rugs in patterns of deep red and brown. There are no chairs or tables in the Western sense. Instead, low, wide wooden platforms, or divans, line the walls, covered in more rugs and an assortment of flat, firm cushions. This style of seating forces a more communal and relaxed posture. Men are lounging, reclining, sitting cross-legged, a far cry from the rigid, upright posture of a chair. Asterisk the patrons, all men, barely give you a glance. A few heads might have turned when the door opened, letting in a slice of bright, intrusive daylight. But they quickly return to their conversations and games. You see men of all ages and apparent stations. There are old men with long white beards, their faces a roadmap of wrinkles, sipping their coffee with slow, deliberate movements. There are younger men, merchants perhaps, dressed in fine, colorful robes, engaged in an animated but hushed discussion. In the corner, a pair of soldiers, their uniforms simple but practical, are engrossed in a game of chess, the silence between them as intense as any battle. This immediate and casual acceptance is a well-documented feature of the coffee house. It was a leveling space. A pasha and a porter could, in theory, sit on the same divan and drink the same coffee. While social hierarchies certainly didn't vanish, they were softened here. This was a place for men to be men, away from the rigid structures of work and family. Asterisk one of the more quirky, lesser-known details of these early coffee houses was their reputation as schools of the wise. They were places where information, both high and low, was exchanged freely. A man could learn about the latest shipment of pepper from Alexandria, the Sultan's new decree on taxation, a recent poem by a celebrated artist, or simply the best place to get a leaky roof fixed. It was the city's living, breathing internet, a social network built on caffeine and conversation. Historians still wonder how much actual political dissent was fostered in these smoky rooms. Sultans often feared them, occasionally even closing them down, convinced they were hotbeds of sedition. Were these fears justified? Or was the gossip mostly harmless, more concerned with neighborhood scandals than with overthrowing the government? The low, secretive murmur all around you suggests the truth is probably somewhere in the middle. Asterisk, a figure detaches itself from the shadows at the far end of the room and moves towards you. He is the proprietor, you assume, a man of indeterminate middle age, with a shrewd, tired-looking face and a small, neat beard. He wears a simple, long-sleeved tunic and baggy trousers. He doesn't smile, but his expression isn't unfriendly. He simply gives you a nod and gestures with his head towards an empty space on a divan along the right-hand wall. The gesture is clear. Welcome. Find a seat. Don't just stand there blocking the door. You give a grateful nod in return, relieved to have a purpose, and begin to make your way through the smoky haze toward the offered spot. Your journey's end now tantalizingly close. The smell of coffee is overwhelming now, rich and potent, and you can't wait to taste it. Asterisk, you navigate the narrow space between the central area and the wall-side divan. careful not to trip over an outstretched leg or a pair of discarded slippers. The men on the platforms are seated on a collection of flat, sturdy cushions, and you find an empty one nestled between a deeply engrossed chess game and a man who seems to be peacefully asleep, his turban tilted at a precarious angle. You slip off your own shoes, leaving them on the floor below the platform as custom dictates, and swing your legs up onto the divan. The movement is a little clumsier, not used to sitting this way, but you manage to settle yourself cross-legged on the cushion without causing too much of a disturbance. The cushion is firm, packed with what feels like horsehair, and the rug beneath it is coarse but clean. Asterisk, now that you are seated and part of the room, rather than an observer at its edge, you can take a more leisurely look around. The world here operates at a different pace. Everything is slow, deliberate, and unhurried. No one is checking a watch. Time seems to be measured in the slow burning of an oil lamp or the duration of a chess game. The air of relaxation is palpable. It's the polar opposite of the frenetic energy of the docks. Here, the goal is not to achieve, but simply to be. You let your shoulders, which you hadn't realized were tensed up, drop. You take a deep breath of the smoky, coffee-scented air. It's surprisingly calming. Asterisk, your eyes gradually adjust to the dimness, and details begin to emerge from the shadows. The walls are mostly bare, a testament to the Islamic prohibition against graven images. There are no paintings of people or animals. Instead, the decoration is purely abstract and calligraphic. In a few places, intricate geometric patterns are painted directly onto the plaster. In the most prominent spot, on the wall behind the coffee-making station, is a large, beautifully rendered piece of calligraphy. It's a verse from the Quran. It's elegant, flowing script, a work of art in itself. The flickering lamplight makes the gold ink shimmer and dance, a point of mesmerizing beauty in the otherwise rustic room. Asterisk, you turn your attention to the other patrons, studying them with quiet curiosity. The two chess players to your left are a study in contrasts. One is an old man, thin and bird-like, with a wispy white beard that reaches his chest. His eyes, though clouded with age, are sharp and focused, darting across the board. His opponent is much younger, a burly man with the thick neck and powerful hands of a laborer. He stares at the carved wooden pieces with a look of intense, furrowed concentration, as if trying to move them with his mind. They haven't spoken a word since you sat down. The only sound from their corner is the soft click of a piece being moved, a sound full of weight and meaning. Asterisk, further down the divan, a group of 3 men are in quiet, earnest conversation. From their fine silk robes and the quality of their turbans, you guess they are merchants of some standing. They lean close together, their voices a low, conspiratorial buzz. One of them is gesturing with his hands, drawing invisible maps in the air as he speaks. They are likely discussing business, the price of pepper in Venice, the reliability of a certain ship's captain, or the latest customs duties imposed by the Sultan. This is the real function of the coffee house. It's an information exchange, a pre-modern LinkedIn, where connections are made and deals are struck over tiny cups of bitter brew. Asterisk, a lesser-known detail about the patrons of these establishments is the presence of the unemployed. Men who are out of work, known as ALAC, would often spend their entire day in a coffee house, nursing a single cup. They weren't just loitering, they were networking. The coffee house served as an informal employment office, a place where a master craftsman looking for an apprentice or a merchant needing a porter could find able-bodied men. It was a vital, if unofficial, part of the city's economic ecosystem. You look around, wondering if any of the men here are a lock, waiting for an opportunity. It's impossible to tell. Everyone is cloaked in the same democratic haze of smoke and dim light. Asterisk. Following the sleepy man's lead, you manage to catch the proprietor's eye. He's standing near the back of the room, overseeing his domain with a calm, watchful air. You give a slight nod, a gesture you hope communicates, "I, too, would like to partake of your famous beverage." He sees you, and his response is another one of those subtle, efficient nods. No words are exchanged. No order is taken. The system here is beautifully simple. If you're here, you want coffee. The only variable is how sweet you want it, but as a newcomer, you'll get the standard house brew. Customization is for regulars. Asterisk, with your order silently placed. You can now turn your full attention to the heart of the operation, the coffee-making station. It's not a bar in the modern sense, but more of a sacred hearth. A raised platform of stone and brick that occupies the far end of the room. This is the domain of the coffee master, the kvetchi. He is a different man from the proprietor, older and more focused, a craftsman completely absorbed in his work. He moves with a slow, deliberate grace, an economy of motion that speaks of a lifetime spent performing this one ritual. He is the high priest of this temple of caffeine. Asterisk, his workstation is a marvel of simple, effective technology. The centerpiece is a wide, shallow bed of sand, heated from below by glowing charcoal embers. This sand bed provides a consistent, gentle, and indirect heat, the key to brewing a perfect cup of Turkish coffee. On a low shelf next to him is his raw material, a sack of green coffee beans. These aren't the dark, oily beans you might be used to. They are a pale, dusty green, and the first step in the process, you now see, is the roasting. The kvetchi takes a small, long-handled pan, almost like a miniature frying pan, and ladles in a scoop of the green beans. He then holds the pan over a separate brazier of fiercely hot coals, shaking it with a constant, rhythmic wrist motion. As the beans heat up, they begin to transform. A sharp crackling sound fills the air, like tiny bits of wood popping in a fire. The color of the beans deepens, from pale green to a warm cinnamon brown, and then to a rich, dark chocolate color. The air fills with that intoxicating, nutty, smoky aroma that first led you here. This is the source. Asterisk, once the beans are roasted, to his satisfaction, a judgment he makes based on color, sound, and smell alone, he tips them into a large brass mortar. He then takes up a heavy brass pestle and begins to grind. The sound is a deep, resonant, percussive rhythm that provides a steady beat to the room's hum. Thump, thump. He grinds the beans into an incredibly fine powder, almost like cocoa or flour. This ultra-fine grind is the secret to the coffee's characteristic, thick, unfiltered texture. A widely accepted historical fact is that the Ottomans were the ones who developed this specific method of brewing, roasting, then finely grinding, then boiling the coffee in a special pot. It was a significant innovation, a departure from how coffee was prepared in its native Yemen, and it's the method that would spread throughout the world. Asterisk, now for the main event. The kvetchi takes a small, elegant pot called a sezvor ibrik. It's a beautiful object, made of hammered brass that glows warmly in the lamplight, with a long, straight wooden handle to protect his hands from the heat. He uses a small scoop to measure out the powdered coffee into the sez, adds a precise amount of sugar from a bowl, and then ladles in cold water from a large clay jug. He gives the mixture a quick stir with a tiny spoon, and then the magic begins. He nestles the base of the sez deep into the hot sand. Asterisk, you watch, fascinated. He doesn't just leave it there. He constantly moves it, pushing it deeper into the sand to heat it, then pulling it back slightly to cool it, controlling the temperature with an expert's touch. Within a minute, a dark, thick foam begins to rise to the top of the pot. This foam, or KPK, is the most prized part of the coffee. Just as the foam threatens to boil over, he swiftly lifts the sez from the sand, letting it subside. He might skim a little of this precious foam off and place it in the bottom of a waiting cup. Then he returns the pot to the sand. He repeats this process 2 or 3 times, a gentle dance of heating and cooling, until the brew is perfect. The whole process is a small, quiet performance, a ritual of patience and precision. It's not about speed. It's about care. Asterisk, a lesser-known quirk of this coffee culture was the status of the cavici. A skilled coffee master was a highly respected figure in the grand households of pashas, and even in the sultan's palace. The chief coffee maker, Kavesi Baka, was a high-ranking and influential official. He was a trusted confidant, often privy to the most secret conversations as he served the coffee. To be the sultan's coffee maker was to be at the nexus of power. Historians still wonder how much informal political influence these men wielded. Did they pass messages, act as intermediaries, or use their privileged position to sway opinions? The quiet, dignified man before you seems a world away from palace intrigue, but the respect he commands in this small room is undeniable. He is an artist, and this is his studio. Asterisk, finally, the coffee is ready. The Kaveci takes a tiny, handleless ceramic cup, no bigger than an egg cup, and with a steady hand, he pours the dark, viscous liquid from the seize. He doesn't use a filter. The fine grounds are poured directly into the cup, along with the liquid, where they will slowly settle to the bottom. He places the cup on a small, round metal saucer, and hands it to the proprietor, who begins to make his way through the room. Your sleepy neighbor gets his cup first. Then, the proprietor turns and walks towards you. Your heart gives a little flutter of anticipation. The journey is over. The moment of truth has arrived. Asterisk, the proprietor moves with a practiced, steady gait, holding the small saucer in a way that seems to defy the very concept of spillage. He arrives before you, and, with a slight bow that is more a gesture of service than deference, he places the coffee on the low platform in front of you. You murmur, "Te, eker, ederum," one of the few Turkish phrases you bothered to learn, meaning thank you. He gives you another one of his silent, all-encompassing nods and moves away to serve another patron. For a moment, you just look at the cup. It sits there, an object of intense focus, and the culmination of your morning's pilgrimage. Asterisk, the cup itself is a thing of simple beauty. It's made of white porcelain, small and delicate, with no handle. It rests in a little metal holder, a zarf, made of brass, intricately stamped with geometric patterns. This holder is not just for decoration. It's a practical and quite clever piece of engineering. The coffee is served scalding hot, and the zarf allows you to hold the cup without burning your fingertips. It's a small, thoughtful detail that elevates the entire experience. From the surface of the dark liquid, a wisp of steam rises, carrying that incredible aroma directly to you. It's even richer and more complex. Up close, a heady mix of dark chocolate, roasted nuts, and a faint, spicy hint of cardamom you didn't notice before. Asterisk, you reach out and carefully lift the cup by its metal holder. It's warm in your hand, a pleasant, comforting heat. On top of the coffee is a thick, velvety layer of foam, the KPK you saw the Kaveci so carefully cultivate. It's a beautiful, creamy brown, unbroken and smooth. The quality of this foam is a point of pride and a mark of a well-made coffee. To be served a cup with a good, thick foam is a sign of respect from the maker. You feel a small sense of honor. Apparently, your fumbling tourist routine didn't disqualify you from receiving a proper cup. Asterisk now, for the taste. You bring the small cup to your lips, tilting it gently. The first thing you experience is the soft, airy texture of the foam. Then the liquid itself follows. The taste is a delightful, full-bodied shock to your system. It is nothing like any coffee you have ever imagined. It's incredibly strong and intense, a concentrated essence of coffee flavor. It's bitter, yes, but not in a harsh or unpleasant way. It's a deep, earthy bitterness, the taste of the roasted bean itself, complex and resonant. This bitterness is immediately balanced by a surprising sweetness. The Kaveci added sugar during the brewing process, and it has melted and integrated completely, providing a smooth, syrupy undertone that softens the coffee's powerful edge. Asterisk, the texture is as important as the taste, because it's unfiltered. The coffee is thick, almost viscous, with a full velvety mouth. The ultrafine grounds are suspended in the liquid, giving it a substance and body that is completely different from the thin, watery brews you might be familiar with. It's a drink you feel as much as you taste. You take another small sip, letting the strange, wonderful liquid coat your tongue. It's not a drink to be gulped down. It's a drink to be sipped slowly, to be savored. Each tiny mouthful is a burst of concentrated flavor. A widely accepted historical fact is that coffee was initially considered a medicine in the Ottoman world, prescribed by physicians to aid digestion and promote alertness. Sipping it now, you can understand why. It feels potent, a powerful elixir. It's less like a beverage and more like a potion. Asterisk, you notice that you're not given a spoon. This is intentional. The fine grounds need to settle at the bottom of the cup, creating a thick, muddy layer. Stirring would ruin the experience, turning the last sips into an unpleasant sludge. As the coffee works its gentle, clarifying magic, your awareness expands beyond your own small cup and cushion. The general, undifferentiated hum of the room begins to resolve into its component parts. And for the first time, you notice a focal point of attention that isn't the coffee master. In the corner opposite the hearth, on a slightly more elevated section of the divan, a man is holding court. He is not a merchant, arguing prices, or a scholar debating theology. He is a storyteller, and he is captivating. He is a man of middle age, with a wonderfully expressive face and a twinkle in his eye that the dim light cannot extinguish. He isn't dressed in any particularly grand fashion. His robes are simple, well-worn, and comfortable. He holds no book or script. His only props are a simple wooden staff, which he holds across his lap, and a large handkerchief, which he occasionally dabs at his brow. His entire performance is conjured from thin air, woven from just his voice, his face, and his gestures. The patrons in his corner are leaning in, their coffee cups forgotten, their games of chess and backgammon paused. They are utterly enthralled. You can't understand the language, of course, but it doesn't seem to matter. The power of his storytelling transcends words. He is in the middle of a tale, and his voice is a masterful instrument. It rises to a dramatic, booming crescendo as he describes what must be a great battle or a terrible storm. He uses his staff now, holding it aloft like a sword, his eyes wide with feigned terror or fury. The men watching him are motionless, their faces reflecting his feigned emotion. Then, in an instant, his entire demeanor shifts. His voice drops to a conspiratorial, high-pitched whisper. He leans forward, his face crinkling into a mischievous grin. He is now portraying a different character, perhaps a cunning vizier, or a gossiping old woman. He uses the handkerchief, draping it over his head like a veil, and his voice becomes reedy and comically shrill. A ripple of soft laughter spreads through his audience. He is a one-man theater company. With a simple turn of his body, or a change in his vocal pitch, he can become a brave hero, a wicked villain, a beautiful princess, or a bumbling fool. He stomps his foot on the wooden platform to simulate a horse's gallop. He taps his staff rhythmically to create the sound of a knocking door. He creates an entire world, populated with a full cast of characters, using nothing but his own body and the rapt imagination of his listeners. It is an ancient art form, one that has existed for centuries, and watching him, you understand its timeless appeal. This is entertainment in its purest, most fundamental form. A widely accepted historical fact is that the Meta were a central feature of Ottoman coffeehouse culture. They were the television, the radio, and the stand-up comedy of their day, all rolled into one. Their stories were drawn from a vast repertoire of folk tales, religious epics, heroic legends, and, most popularly, the romantic and often humorous adventures of beloved folk heroes like Nasreddin Hoxha. These storytellers were freelancers, professionals who traveled from coffeehouse to coffeehouse, their income dependent on their skill, and the generosity of their audience. At the end of a story, they would pass a hat or a basket, and the patrons would show their appreciation with a few small coins. You find yourself completely drawn in, your coffee growing cool in your hand. You try to piece together the narrative from his actions. He seems to be telling a classic trickster tale. He mimes a character slyly, hiding a purse of gold, then portrays another character, a bumbling guard, perhaps, walking right past it, completely oblivious. He mimics the proud strut of a wealthy merchant, puffing out his chest, and then the hunched, shuffling gait of a poor beggar. He even becomes an animal for a moment, getting down on all fours and letting out a surprisingly convincing goat-like bleat, which sends his audience into another wave of quiet, appreciative chuckles. It's light, it's humorous, and it's deeply engaging. A lesser-known, quirky detail about the meta is the symbolism of their props. The staff, or pastav, wasn't just a prop for sound effects or miming a sword. It was said to represent the world axis, the connection between heaven and earth, giving his stories a subtle, almost shamanic authority. The handkerchief, or makram, was not just for wiping sweat or impersonating women. It was used to instantly change characters, with a flick of the wrist signaling a shift in persona. These simple tools, in the hands of a master, were imbued with a deep symbolic power. Historians still debate the social role of the meta. Were they purely entertainers, offering a simple escape from the drudgery of daily life? Or were they also social commentators, using the safe, fictional space of their stories to subtly critique authority, mock the powerful, and speak truth to the common man? The tales of Narration and Hoja, for example, are filled with jokes that expose the absurdity of bureaucracy and the foolishness of tyrants. When the meta tells a story about a pompous, idiotic judge, is he just telling a funny story? Or is he also offering a quiet, coded critique of the local judiciary? Given the nervous disposition of the sultans towards these public gathering places, it seems likely that the stories were often more than just stories. The storyteller is reaching his climax. His voice is fast and excited. The trickster character seems to have succeeded in his scheme. The storyteller mimes the counting of coins, a look of pure, unadulterated glee on his face. He ends the tale with a final, booming pronouncement, throwing his arms wide with a triumphant flourish. He holds the pose for a moment, and then his face relaxes into a warm, genuine smile. The story is over. A wave of appreciative murmurs and soft applause ripples through the room. The spell is broken. The men relax, stretch, and turn back to their own conversations. The chess players resume their silent battle. The meta takes a deep breath, wipes his brow with his handkerchief for real this time, and begins to make his way through the crowd, a small felt cap in his hand to collect his due. You reach into your pouch, ready to offer a coin for the magnificent, wordless performance. As the storyteller makes his rounds, his felt cap filling with the soft clink of ackee, the general hum of the room reasserts itself. The temporary unity of the shared narrative dissolves, and the coffeehouse once again becomes a collection of smaller, separate worlds. You drop a coin into the meta's cap as he passes, and he gives you a gracious nod, his eyes sparkling with the residual energy of his performance. With the show over, you have the mental space to return to your quiet observation, and you begin to appreciate the sheer diversity of the men gathered in this single, smoky room. It's like a living portrait gallery, a cross-section of the city's sprawling social strata, all temporarily united by their shared need for a caffeine-fueled pause. Your eyes are drawn back to the chess players. The old man with the wispy beard and the burly laborer are still locked in their silent war. The board between them is a battlefield of intense, miniature dramas. The old man's hand, thin and papery, hovers over a carved wooden knight, his fingers trembling slightly, not from weakness, but from an excess of concentration. He is thinking several moves ahead, his mind a labyrinth of possibilities. The younger man, by contrast, is a picture of raw, physical focus. He leans so far over the board that his nose is almost touching the pieces, his brow furrowed in a deep, complicated knot. He isn't just playing a game, he's wrestling with it. This juxtaposition is fascinating. What brings these two disparate men together? Is this a daily ritual? Is the old man a retired master, teaching the younger one the subtleties of the game? Or are they complete strangers, brought together by the simple, universal language of 64 squares? Looking beyond them, you study the group of merchants again. They've finished their hushed business talk and are now simply relaxing. One of them has produced a small, beautifully inlaid wooden box. He opens it to reveal a sweet, sticky confection, probably lokum or Turkish delight, dusted with powdered sugar. He offers it to his companions, who each take a piece with a murmur of thanks. Their conversation is lighter now, punctuated by soft chuckles. They are no longer partners in commerce, but friends, sharing a sweet treat. Their fine clothes and confident demeanor set them apart, yet here, lounging on the same divans as everyone else, their status seems less important than their camaraderie. In a darker corner of the room, you spot a group that projects a completely different energy. They are a trio of janissaries, the elite infantry units of the Ottoman army. You can tell by their distinctive felt hats and their air of disciplined confidence. They are off duty, their uniforms slightly unbuttoned, but they still carry themselves with a military bearing. They aren't talking much. They are drinking their coffee in a watchful silence, their eyes scanning the room with a practiced, assessing gaze. A widely accepted historical fact is that the Janissaries were a powerful and often volatile political force in the empire. They were fiercely loyal to their cores and to the Sultan, but they were also known for their rebellions if they felt their privileges were threatened. To see them here, at ease but ever alert, is a reminder of the power structures that exist just outside this peaceful, smoky room. They are a quiet, physical embodiment of the Sultan's authority. Then your gaze falls upon a figure who seems entirely out of place, yet perfectly at home. He is a dervish, a practitioner of Sufism, the mystical diamonds. As you become more attuned to the rhythms of the room, you start to practice a new skill, eavesdropping, not in a deliberate, nosy way, but by simply letting the currents of conversation wash over you. The air is thick with words, a rich soup of information, and by focusing your attention, you can begin to pick out the ingredients. You still don't understand the language, but you can interpret the tones, the gestures, and the occasional recognizable word and name, a place that floats to the surface. You are listening to the pulse of the city. The merchants to your right have moved on from Turkish delight and are now engaged in a more serious discussion. One of them, a portly man with a magnificent, henna-dyed beard, is speaking with hushed urgency. He keeps mentioning Halab, which you recognize as Aleppo, a major trading hub in Syria. He sketches something on the palm of his hand with his finger, probably a trade route, and then makes a gesture that universally means expensive. His companions nod gravely. They are likely discussing the latest caravan news. Information was the most valuable commodity of all, and the coffee house was its primary stock exchange. News of a delayed caravan, a new tax imposed by a local governor, or an outbreak of banditry on a certain route could make or break a merchant's fortune. What you're hearing is the sound of money being protected, the verbal dance of risk assessment. Your attention then drifts to a pair of men sitting near the door. They are dressed in the modest robes of junior clerks or bureaucrats. They speak in low, furtive tones, constantly glancing around as if to ensure no one is listening too closely. Their conversation is peppered with the name Sokolu Mehmet, Pasha the Grand Vizier. They aren't speaking his name with reverence, but with a kind of weary frustration. One of them mimes the act of writing, over and over again, and then sighs dramatically. You piece together a probable story. They are complaining about their boss. It's a timeless, universal conversation. They are grumbling about paperwork, about the endless, thankless tasks assigned to them by the vast imperial bureaucracy. It's a strangely comforting thought, even in the magnificent, exotic heart of the Ottoman Empire. People still complain about their jobs. A widely accepted historical fact is that the Ottoman government, far from being a chaotic freefall, was a highly organized and sophisticated bureaucracy. The Imperial Council, or Divanwayh, met regularly to manage the affairs of the sprawling empire, and a complex system of scribes and officials kept meticulous records of laws, decrees, and tax revenues. These records, now preserved in archives, are an invaluable window into the empire's inner workings. The two men grumbling near the door are a tiny but essential cog in that massive machine. Their complaints are the friction that is an inevitable byproduct of any large organization. Suddenly, a new energy enters the room. A man has just arrived, fresh from the street, and he is the bearer of news. He's a sailor, you guess, from his sun-darkened skin and the easy, rolling way he walks. He greets a few friends, and a small crowd immediately gathers around him. He is speaking loudly, excitedly. He points back towards the door, in the direction of the sea, and uses the word Venedict, Venice. A Venetian ship has just been sighted, or has just docked. This is big news. It means fresh goods from Europe, letters from distant relatives, and new business opportunities. The merchants pause their conversation to listen. Even one of the janissaries turns his head, his interest piqued. The coffee house has just received a push notification, delivered not by a smartphone, but by a sailor with a loud voice. This informal news network was incredibly efficient. A lesser-known detail is how specialized certain coffee houses became. There were coffee houses favored by janissaries, where military gossip was exchanged. There were others that were the unofficial headquarters for merchants from a specific guild. There were even coffee houses for firemen Tulumbackler, where they would wait for the alarm to sound. And then there were the storytellers' coffee houses. By choosing a specific coffee house, a man could curate the type of information he received, much like choosing which websites or social media accounts to follow today. You wonder what kind of coffee house this is. Given the mix of patrons, it seems to be a generalist, a place for all sorts of news and all sorts of people. Amidst all this talk of grand commerce and state affairs, you also overhear the more mundane, personal whispers of daily life. Two older men are having a quiet debate. One of them points to his own knee and grimaces. The other shakes his head and suggests something, miming the act of grinding herbs. They are discussing remedies for an aching joint. It's a conversation that could be happening in any village square, in any home, anywhere in the world. It's a reminder that history isn't just about sultans and battles. It's about the small, everyday concerns of ordinary people trying to navigate their lives. Historians still debate the reliability of the information that circulated in these coffee houses. How much of it was accurate news, and how much was just rumor, gossip, and what we might today call fake news. Without newspapers or any form of fact-checking, a story could mutate and grow with each retelling. A simple report of a border skirmish could transform into a full-blown invasion by the time it crossed the city. Did the authorities ever try to plant disinformation in the coffee houses to sway public opinion? It's almost certain they did. The coffee house was not just a place to hear the news. It was a battleground where the narrative of the city was constantly being fought over and rewritten, one whispered conversation at a time. You lean back against the wall, closing your eyes for a moment, letting the symphony of whispers, rumors, and reports flow around you. You hear the deep, resonant tones of a business deal, the high, reedy complaints of a frustrated clerk, the excited buzz of fresh news from the port, and the quiet, gentle advice for an aching knee. You are tapped directly into the city's central nervous system, and it is a messy, vibrant, and wonderfully human thing to behold. You are no longer just an observer. You are a listener, and in the quiet act of listening, You feel yourself becoming a small part of this world. After the initial excitement of the Venetian ship's arrival subsides, a comfortable lull settles over the room. The sailor, having delivered his news, has acquired his own cup of coffee and joined a game of backgammon. The merchants have fallen silent, perhaps contemplating the financial implications of this new variable. The grumbling clerks have paid their dues and departed, presumably to return to the very paperwork they were complaining about. The energy in the room has shifted from active information exchange to a more passive, contemplative state. It's the coffeehouse equivalent of a mid-morning slump, but a pleasant, relaxed one. You find yourself with a moment of pure, uninterrupted quiet. Your coffee cup is now empty, save for the thick, muddy sediment at the bottom. You place it back on its metal saucer, the small act feeling final and satisfying. The invigorating buzz of the caffeine is still with you, but it has mellowed into a state of calm, clear-headed awareness. You are not sleepy, but you are deeply relaxed. Your gaze drifts towards one of the small, high windows, a dusty rectangle of light that seems a world away. From your vantage point on the divan, you can't see the street itself, only the top floor of the building opposite. It's a simple, plaster-walled facade, much like the one you are in. A wooden shutter on one of its windows is slightly ajar. Through this gap, you catch a fleeting, fragmented glimpse of life. You see a hand, a woman's hand, gracefully tending to a small pot of basil perched on the windowsill. The fingers are long and delicate, moving with a gentle, caring touch as they pluck a withered leaf. It's a tiny, intimate domestic scene, a silent poem happening just across the alleyway. For a moment, you feel like a spy, an accidental voyeur, but the action is so simple, so universal. It feels less like an intrusion and more like a quiet connection, a reminder of the hidden, private worlds that exist just beyond these public walls. You think about the lives of the women in this city, while you and all these men are here, lounging, talking, and drinking coffee. What are their mothers, wives, sisters, and daughters doing? Their world, while separate, was no less complex or vital. They managed the households, raised the children, controlled the family budgets, and maintained vast, powerful social networks of their own. A widely accepted historical fact is that Ottoman women, particularly those of the elite classes, could be formidable economic agents. They could inherit and own property, manage businesses through male agents, and even initiate legal proceedings to protect their financial interests. The harem, often imagined in the West as a simple prison of sensual pleasure, was in reality a complex, hierarchical institution with its own intricate politics and power structures. The woman tending her basil is a part of that other world, a world you can only glimpse through a crack in a shutter. Your gaze moves from the window to a thin, bright line of light under the front door. You can see the blurred, shadowy movement of feet passing by in the street, the quick, shuffling steps of someone in a hurry, the slow, heavy tread of a porter. Each passing shadow is a story you can only guess at. Where are they going? What news do they carry? Just as you're beginning to feel you could sit here forever, suspended in this timeless smoky amber, the atmosphere in the room begins to subtly shift once more. It's not a sudden change, but a gradual turning of the tide. The light filtering through the high windows is losing its bright morning intensity, softening into the warmer, golden hues of late afternoon. The city outside is transitioning from the business of the day to the relaxation of the evening, and the coffee house is reflecting that change. The air, which had thinned out during the midday lull, is growing thick and fragrant again as the Kaveci begins to roast a fresh batch of beans. Preparing for the evening rush, a new wave of patrons begins to trickle in. These are not the same men who were here at dawn. The merchants and clerks have been replaced by craftsmen and shopkeepers, their faces etched with the fatigue of a long day's work. A carpenter enters, sawdust still clinging to his simple tunic. He yawns widely, unselfconsciously, and finds a spot on a divan, his body slumping into the cushions, with a sigh of profound relief. A baker, his face flushed from the heat of his ovens, follows soon after. Their arrival changes the room's energy. The conversations are less about commerce and politics, and more about the day's small triumphs and frustrations. The talk is slower, more weary, but also more relaxed. Asterisk, the proprietor, who had been sitting quietly in a corner, is back on his feet, moving with a renewed sense of purpose. He collects empty cups, wipes down the low wooden tables, and greets the new arrivals with his characteristic economy of gesture. The kvetchi at his hearth is working with a quiet intensity, the rhythmic thump-thump of his pestle grinding a fresh batch of beans, a familiar and comforting beat. The demand for coffee is rising again. But this time, it seems driven less by a need for mental stimulation, and more by a desire for a comforting, restorative ritual to mark the end of the workday. Asterisk A. Widely accepted historical fact is that coffee houses were open from early in the morning until late at night. They were one of the few secular public spaces that operated outside of conventional working hours, providing a crucial outlet for men after a day of labor. For many, a visit to the coffee house was an indispensable part of their daily routine, as fundamental as prayer or sleep. It was a third place, a home away from home, a sanctuary from the demands of both the workplace and the domestic sphere. You are now witnessing the evening chapter of this daily cycle. Asterisk, as twilight deepens outside, the proprietor begins to light more oil lamps. He moves around the room with a long, smoldering taper, touching the flame to the wicks of lamps that had been dormant all day. Each newly lit lamp adds another pool of soft, warm, golden light to the room, pushing back the encroaching shadows. The interior becomes warmer, cozier, more intimate. The hazy shafts of sunlight are gone, replaced entirely by the gentle, flickering glow of the lamps. The room seems to shrink, to wrap itself more tightly around its occupants, fostering a sense of shared sanctuary against the falling night. Asterisk, with the new crowd comes a new soundscape. The sharp clatter of backgammon dice is now more frequent, the games more boisterous. In one corner, a man has brought a saz, a long-necked lute. He is not a professional performer like the meta, just a patron who loves to play. He begins to pluck a simple, melancholic folk melody. It's not a performance for an audience, but a personal expression, a way of unwinding. A few men turn to listen, nodding their heads to the rhythm. Others ignore it, continuing their conversations. The music is just another layer in the rich sensory tapestry of the room, a thread of mournful beauty woven into the hum of conversation and the clink of cups. Asterisk A. Lesser known and rather interesting detail of this period is the recurring moral panics surrounding coffee and coffee houses. Religious conservatives and government officials periodically denounced them as dens of iniquity, places that encouraged idleness, gambling, and even unorthodox religious practices. Some hardline clerics issued fatwas declaring coffee an intoxicant and therefore forbidden, like alcohol. Several sultans, most famously Murad IV, in the 17th century, went so far as to order the complete closure of all coffee houses in Constantinople, viewing them as hotbeds of sedition. These prohibitions were, of course, wildly unpopular and ultimately The public's love for coffee and the social life that surrounded it was simply too strong. The very existence of this room, thriving and full, is a testament to the failure of that prohibitionist impulse. Asterisk, the changing atmosphere, makes you wonder about the cycle of stories in this room. Historians still debate how the news of the day evolved as the patrons changed. Did the evening crowd, composed more of laborers and craftsmen, care about the price of silk from Persia, or were their concerns more local, more immediate? Was the talk of the evening less about the grand movements of empire and more about the price of bread, a dispute with a neighbor, or the upcoming wedding of a guildmaster's daughter? The music from the saz, with its earthy, folk quality, suggests the latter. The concerns of the evening feel more grounded, more personal. Asterisk, the man next to you, a newcomer with the calloused hands of a stonemason, receives his coffee. He takes a sip and lets out a long, contented sigh, a sound that seems to carry the weight of his entire day. He catches your eye and gives you a weary but friendly smile. You smile back. In this moment, you are not a foreigner, not a tourist from the future, but just another person in a quiet room, seeking a moment of respite at the end of the day. The feeling of being an outsider, which you've carried with you since you stepped off the boat, finally begins to dissolve completely. The smoke, the sounds, the soft light, they have worked their magic on you. You feel a sense of belonging, as if you've been coming here every evening for years. The room has accepted you. Asterisk, the melancholy tune from the sass player eventually fades. His song finished. He doesn't begin another. He just cradles the instrument in his lap, his fingers resting on the strings, lost in his own thoughts. The room settles back into its familiar, comfortable hum, but the energy has undeniably softened. The caffeine from your first and only cup of coffee, which had sharpened your senses and kept you alert for hours, is beginning to wane. In its place, a gentle, pleasant drowsiness is starting to creep in at the edges of your consciousness. It's the feeling of a battery winding down, a slow and peaceful depletion of energy. Asterisk, you find yourself yawning, a deep and satisfying stretch of the jaw that you have to stifle behind your hand. The man next to you, the stonemason, sees your yawn and smiles again, a knowing, empathetic look. He gives a small yawn of his own, a chain reaction of weariness. The long day, the dim light, the warm, smoky air, and the low, monotonous drone of conversation have combined to create a powerful, natural soporific. The coffee house, which was a place of stimulation and news just a few hours ago, has transformed into a kind of public living room, a place for winding down before heading home to sleep. Asterisk, you look down at your empty cup. The thick, black sediment at the bottom, the coffee grounds, has now fully settled. You remember the tradition of fortune-telling, of reading the fall. On a whim, you decide to try it. You carefully place the saucer over the top of the cup, hold them together firmly, and with a quick flick of the wrist, you turn the whole thing upside down. You set it down on the low table and wait, as custom dictates, for the grounds to cool and for the excess liquid to drain away, allowing the patterns to set. It feels like a silly, playful thing to do, a small, private ritual in this public space. Asterisk, while you wait, you let your gaze wander one last time around the room, taking a final mental snapshot. The chess players from the morning are long gone. Their board now occupied by two new opponents who are playing a much faster, more reckless game. The dervish's quiet corner is now occupied by a group of young men, apprentices perhaps, who are laughing quietly at a shared joke. The storyteller's elevated seat is empty. The room is a constantly changing ecosystem, its population in a state of gentle, perpetual flux. Yet the overall atmosphere of calm remains. Asterisk, you think about the last dregs in your cup. The coffee grounds, the part of the drink that is discarded, are a reminder of the raw, earthy origin of this experience. A widely accepted historical fact is that all coffee in the world at this time originated from a single region, the highlands of Yemen. The Ottoman Empire held a strict monopoly on the coffee trade, and they guarded it jealously. They would boil the coffee beans before exporting them, a process that sterilized them and prevented anyone else from cultivating their own plants. It was a clever, and for a long time, successful, attempt to corner the market on this magical bean. Of course, this monopoly would eventually be broken, most famously by a Dutch merchant who, according to legend, smuggled out a few fertile plants, paving the way for coffee cultivation in Java, and eventually the rest of the world. But here, in this room, in this moment, coffee is still an exclusively Ottoman treasure. Asterisk. With a soft groan of effort, You swing your legs off the divan and onto the cool floor. Your muscles are stiff from sitting cross-legged for so long. You take a moment to stretch, a subtle movement so as not to draw attention, and slide your feet back into your shoes. As you stand up, you feel a little unsteady, your body heavy with the pleasant weight of approaching sleep. You look towards the back of the room and catch the proprietor's eye one last time. You give him a final, grateful nod, a silent acknowledgement of his hospitality. He responds with his usual brief, efficient dip of the head. It feels like a complete and adequate farewell. Asterisk, you turn and make your way towards the front door, navigating the familiar obstacle course of outstretched legs and discarded slippers. The air in the room feels even thicker and warmer now, a cozy, human-scented blanket you are about to shrug off. As you reach for the door handle, you take one last look back at the scene. The room is a perfect tableau of nighttime tranquility, the soft, glowing pools of lamplight, the swirling smoke, the men lounging in comfortable repose, their voices a low, soothing murmur. It's a scene that has probably repeated itself, almost identically, every single night for decades. It is a bastion of comforting routine in a chaotic world. Asterisk, you pull the heavy wooden door open and step outside. The change in atmosphere is just as abrupt as it was when you entered, but in reverse. The warm, smoky air is instantly replaced by a cool, clean, and refreshingly damp night breeze. The gentle murmur of the coffee house is extinguished, replaced by a profound, almost startling, silence. The city, which was a roaring, chaotic beast this morning, has gone to sleep. The alleyway is empty, a river of dark shadows and pale, moon-washed cobblestones. Asterisk, you look up. The narrow slice of sky visible between the overhanging rooftops is a deep, velvety indigo, studded with a few bright, hard-edged stars. A sliver of a crescent moon hangs like a silver charm, casting a soft, ethereal light that paints the edges of the buildings in ghostly white. The city is transformed. The harsh, sun-drenched details of the day have been smoothed over, softened by the darkness. The winding, confusing alleys now seem mysterious and romantic. The silence is broken only by the distant, mournful cry of a dog and the faint, almost inaudible echo of your own footsteps on the stones. Asterisk, you begin to walk, your direction guided by a vague memory of the route you took this morning. But you are not in a hurry. Your steps are slow and measured. The cool air on your face feels wonderful, washing away the last remnants of the smoky room. The strong, bitter taste of the coffee has long since faded from your mouth, but the aroma seems to have clung to your clothes and hair. You carry the ghost of the coffee house with you as you walk, a pleasant, roasted scent that mingles with the clean, stony smell of the night. Asterisk, this nocturnal version of the city is a world unto itself. A lesser-known fact of Ottoman urban life was the role of the night watchman, the Beki. These men would patrol the streets after dark, carrying lanterns and staffs. Their job was to ensure doors were locked, to watch for fires, a constant and terrifying threat in a city built largely of wood, and to question anyone they found out and about. Their periodic, chanted calls, announcing the time and that all was well, were a comforting, rhythmic feature of the night. You listen for such a call but hear only the silence. Perhaps it's too early, or perhaps you are in a quarter without a patrol. Asterisk, as you walk, the city reveals its sleeping self to you. You pass the shuttered stalls of the spice merchants, their vibrant colors now hidden, their exotic scents sealed away behind wood and iron. You pass the bakery, its ovens now cold, the warm, yeasty smell replaced by the faint, ghostly scent of old flour. The only sign of life is a flicker of light from a high window, or a cat, a silent, fluid shadow, darting across your path and disappearing into a darker patch of blackness. These cats, a famous and beloved feature of the city then, as now, seem to be the true owners of the night. A silent, watchful kingdom that awakens as the humans sleep. Historians still wonder about the emotional experience of nighttime in a pre-industrial city. Without the pervasive glow of electric streetlights, the darkness was absolute, profound. Was it terrifying? A source of constant anxiety about what dangers real or imagined lurked in the shadows? Or was it peaceful, a welcome blanket of quiet and privacy after the intense, communal crush of the day? Walking through these silent, moonlit canyons of stone, you feel it is overwhelmingly the latter. The darkness is not menacing, it is calming. It is a great, collective exhalation. The city finally at rest. You find yourself back on a path you recognize. A downward slope that you know leads towards the water, towards the area where your modest lodging is located. The sea air is stronger here, carrying the familiar smells of salt and damp wood. The journey that was so confusing and frustrating in the morning is now simple and direct in the quiet of the night. You feel a deep sense of satisfaction. You set out this morning on a quest, a search for a taste and an experience, and you found it. You navigated the strange, beautiful, overwhelming city, and you are now returning, your mind full of images, sounds, and scents. You finally reach the small, quiet square where you are staying. Your room is above a small, family-run bakery. You unlatch the heavy wooden door to the residence and make your way up a narrow, creaking staircase. The air here smells faintly of cinnamon and sugar. You enter your small, simple room. It contains only a bed, a mattress on the floor, and a small window. You don't light a lamp. The moonlight filtering through the window is enough. You can see the dark, shimmering water of the Golden Horn from here, the silhouettes of the sleeping ships. A profound sense of peace settles over you. The day is done. The journey is over. All that is left is the sweet oblivion of sleep. The day has been long. A journey woven from mist and stone, from the scent of salt and the aroma of roasted coffee. But now, that journey is complete. All the sights and sounds of the bustling city, the murmuring voices in the smoky room, the clatter of backgammon dice, and the storyteller's captivating tales can all begin to fade, softening at the edges, dissolving into the gentle, quiet darkness of your own comfortable room. There is nothing left for you to do, nowhere else you need to be. You can let go of the day, releasing it like a long, slow breath. Feel the weight of your own body, the gentle pressure of the bed supporting you completely. Feel the coolness of the pillow beneath your head. The quiet of the room is a gift, a soft blanket of peace that wraps around you. Any lingering thoughts, any worries or plans for tomorrow can be set aside. They can wait. They have no power here, in this calm, quiet space between waking and sleeping. Let your breathing slow down, becoming deeper and more regular. A long, slow breath in, and a long, soft breath out. With each exhalation, you can feel your muscles relaxing further, your body growing heavier, sinking deeper into a state of profound rest. The city outside is sleeping. The moon is keeping watch over the quiet rooftops, and the gentle waters of the Golden Horn are rocking the ships in a slow, silent lullaby. You are safe. You are comfortable. You are ready for rest. All that is left is to allow yourself to drift, to float away on that calm, quiet tide, into the deep, restorative peace of your own sweet dreams.